So we've interplanted with some amaranth in this bed, and you can see we use these little cages to protect the seedlings. And this is the variety that we use, Mano de Obispo, which is from Native Seed Search here in Tucson. And amaranth actually becomes a really big plant, but you don't have to necessarily plant it where you have room. This is a melon, and it's gonna get pretty big. But we're able to use some of the space around it to grow some amaranth greens. So you can see this row of these that are coming up, and I planted them really close together because I don't mind that, they're close together because we're going to pick them when they're really small. So this will end up just being a nice little harvest that can end up going into, into some dish. And so you can create these little special opportunities for meals in your garden by utilizing some of the space that isn't quite being used yet. Of course, these are gonna fill in eventually, but we can still use that space now. You can see we've done the same thing through here. We have some amaranth coming up. So now we have 2 melons in this spot, and we'll need to choose one. And this one's looking a little bit better. You can see these are the cotyledons, and now it has true leaves coming up from the middle, and this is looking like a healthier plant. So I'll keep that one, and I'll snip this one off with some scissors. You don't want to pull it. You can actually disturb the roots of the plant next to it. So this whole planting bed here is coming along. Everything's germinating and coming up nicely. So remember, when you have little seedlings like this, you do need to keep the surface moist. When they germinate, especially ones that are closer to the surface, really small seeds, that they germinate and then they dry out, then they'll die. So you do have to do some supplemental watering, especially if you're using irrigation oyas like we do. They don't really bring a whole lot of moisture to the surface, but you dig down just a little ways and you'll see that it's really quite moist. This is actually a little tomato plant volunteer right here. Yep, smells like tomato. We get a lot of those coming up in the garden. This year we decided to grow a bunch of amaranth in the garden. Something that I've been really wanting to grow for some time, and for some reason I never did. A lot of people consider this a superfood, and it grows really well with other plants. In fact, it's oftentimes used as one of the options for the tall plant in a Three Sisters garden, where a lot of times you would use corn, you can use amaranth, or also sunflowers. So we grew a bunch of this amaranth for its nutritional value with the leaves themselves. You can eat the leaves, and then also it does end up putting out these little seeds with the flowers that it produces, and those seeds can be used in a lot of different ways. So it's a really great plant, and it's beautiful. It has a really nice reddish color to it, this particular variety that we've got at Native Seed Search here in Tucson. So while we were at it growing this amaranth, I thought, let's do a little test. I had an area here where I knew I wanted the amaranth to be, and you can see here how it's coming along. We got this nice tall plant. It's pushing 20 inches tall, something like that now. And there's another part of this garden bed where I planted a bunch of amaranth really close together. And so I'll take you over and kind of show you that. It's a really good demonstration of what happens when you don't thin a plant out. So this particular plant, you can see it has enough room around it, and it's able to develop quite nicely. But if we come over to this other part of the bed, this is a section here where I knew I was going to have this squash plant that was going to take over this area. And so I did a little experiment here where I planted a bunch of amaranth that I was just going to use for the greens, pick it as a small young plant. And what was interesting about it is not thinning it out, how much smaller this has been because it's so crowded. Now, of course, it's starting to get a little overshadowed by this squash plant. You can see now that this squash plant is starting to really fill in, shading these plants, but they've really been stunted from the beginning. And you'll notice this with a lot of other plants. If you don't thin them out well, then they really don't develop like they should. So it's really important to do that. And I like to do that with scissors, going in there and just snipping the ones that you don't want to keep and thinning them that way to the desired distance between plants. If you pull the plant out instead of using scissors, then you can actually damage the roots of the plant next to it. So it's really, really important to just use some little micro trimmers or scissors. And so, these are ready to harvest. I didn't intend on doing anything more than letting them get to about this size. But it's interesting, after about what has been, I guess, about 5 weeks now, seeing the difference between these ones and the amaranth plants that had some more spacing around them. If you're looking for some guidance on just how far apart these plants should be spaced, we have a tool that we've created for that. You can find it on our website, thriveandgrowgardens.com, under resources. It's called Investing in Your Garden. And this guide is all about getting the right spacing between plants so that you can really make the most out of your garden space. We'll also link it below in the description. But it does have plants like this, a lot of common plants that you're going to have in the garden. It tells you how many of these plants per foot that you can place for optimal growth. And so you can plant them more densely, but once they start getting to where they're getting their true leaves and they're a few inches tall, at that point you can choose which ones look best and keep those, and you can trim out the rest. There's always so much going on in the garden, so stay tuned. I'll keep posting more videos with tips to help you out, help you get the results that you're looking for. So follow along, and I'll see you in the next video.